Did you know that every year there are more recorded accidents from climbers making their way down from routes than in any other part of climbing? Rappelling, or abseiling, depending on where you come from in the world, is relatively simple. But the devil's in the detail, as they say, and there are lots of nuances that can make it much safer and much more efficient. So I've got my gear, I'm ready to go. Let's get up to an anchor and we'll go through it step by step. Okay, so here we are at the anchor, and I just want to take a quick moment to touch on the evolution of abseiling so that we understand why we use some of the systems that we're going to see in this video today. Now, traditionally, as long as we had a tube device, we could connect it to our belay loop and we can pass our two ropes through like so. And this is pretty much everything we need to be able to abseil. But pretty quickly, people notice that there's an issue with this, right? This only works when I have a hand on the brake strand. As soon as I let go of that hand, I'm going to check behind me here, as soon as I let go, then I'm in free fall. And this means that, of course, if something happens to me while I'm abseiling, for example, if I get hit by a rock, or even if I just sneeze or do something weird, who knows what could happen, then this ultimately doesn't have any redundancy and it could potentially cost me my life. So people came up with an idea, and the idea was to use what we refer to as a third hand. So people would start to place a prusik loop like this one, but I'm not doing a prusik, I'm doing an auto block here. Okay, they would wrap it round the rope, creating a hitch like this, a friction hitch, and they would connect it to their leg loop like so. Okay, and what this means is that if I let go with my brake hand, then that friction hitch is going to activate and it's going to stop me from falling to the ground. Nice, really good development, but it's a little bit sketchy, right? You can see here the carabiner's sitting on the metal buckle from my leg loop. The leg loop isn't rated for this, so there's just a few issues, right? But we need to have this auto block separated from our abseiling device, because if they were to touch together, then the device would deactivate the auto block and it becomes essentially useless. So the system is great in theory, but there are a few little problems with it, and that's kind of what led us to the system that I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. So let's take a look at how we can get set up. Okay, so now let's look at a modern, much safer system that has been developed off the back of this kind of third-hand approach. You'll notice here that I've got my anchor set up. We should always be building our anchors at every abseil station, just for the sake of safety and equalizing our anchor points and all that kind of stuff. So I am clipped in here to my master point with my lanyard. In this case, it's a Petzl Connect, but any kind of lanyard would do. I would recommend having an adjustable lanyard for running function tests on our abseil setup a little bit later in the process, but you'll see that when we come to it. So first things first, I'm tied into both ropes here. And let's imagine that I was climbing up here and I was the, let's say I was the first climber to get here, then it would be my two ends of the ropes that we would need to untie first and thread through the anchor. So straight away, I'm going to thread that through our anchor. I'm going to untie my other rope, and then I need to connect these ropes in some way. Why would it be the first climber, the lead climber, whose ropes we're going to thread through the anchor? Because the seconders' ends of the ropes are on the top of the pile, and that means that it's just much easier to throw the ropes down and they will unfurl nicely, rather than just kind of causing a big mess. So it's just a nice little thing to bear in mind. Now you'll notice that I've threaded the rope behind the anchor here, and this is a really nice little detail, okay, because when it comes to the second abseiler or the last person to abseil wanting to begin their abseil, they're going to have to clean the anchor. And if these carabiners are behind the rope here, then it can be really tricky to get them out from behind that rope, because the rope is going to have a lot of weight on the end of it, and it's going to be pinching those carabiners. So we want to make sure that we're threading the rope behind the carabiners on our anchor here. Now we need to connect these ropes in some way, and there are multiple ways that we could do it. We could do a rethreaded figure 8, we could do a simple overhand knot, but those come with their issues, and my favorite solution to those issues is a double overhand knot. And the way that I do that is by using my index finger and my middle finger. I wrap around my fingers twice before pulling my fingers out, and it kind of leaves a nice little tunnel there that I can then poke the two ends of my ropes through that tunnel and tighten and dress as we always would. Okay, this knot is really nice because, first of all, it's easy to see if it's well dressed. Usually when we're climbing multi-pitch routes, we're climbing with 2 different colored ropes, and I should always have alternating colors, as you can see here is the case. And also it avoids a slight issue with just a simple overhand knot, where the knot could kind of unravel itself. It kind of starts flopping over itself. I don't really know how to explain it. It kind of starts rolling and could potentially roll to the ends of the ropes. With the double overhand knot, it's very, very difficult for that to happen, especially if it's well dressed. And then finally, because this knot, you'll see here that it's not in line with the rope, it's sitting to one side of the rope. So if the ropes run through a small crack as we're pulling them through our next abseil station, then there's a chance that that knot will sit outside of the crack, and it's less likely that it will get caught up in something and cause us to have to go up there and try and retrieve it. So that's my favorite knot, and it's the one that I'd recommend that you go with for now. I'm going to pull the knot up to the anchor. And the very first thing we're going to do to start actually setting up our abseil on the ropes is we're going to take our prusik loop, okay, and instead of clipping it to our leg loops there, we're going to clip it straight to our belay loop, okay. And I'm going to unravel my prusik loop here, okay, and I'm just going to start wrapping it around to create an auto block. Now, why are we doing our auto block before setting up our belay or our abseil device? There's a pretty important reason, and that is that right here we've got the ropes on a pretty comfortable ledge and they're all piled up here, but that's not always the case. Sometimes we're literally hanging on the edge of a cliff and we've got all of the weight of the ropes hanging on us here. Now, an auto block we can set up on ropes with tension in them because we're just wrapping around those tense ropes. So it's really easy to set up first, and then once we've got the auto block set up, we can pull some slack through. The weight that's hanging on the end of the ropes is going to make the auto block activate, and it means that I can have some slack up at this end to be able to comfortably set up my abseil device rather than fighting against the weight of the ropes as I do so. The next thing we need to do is to set up our abseil device, but if we were to set it up just directly onto our belay loop and connect the rope here, you'll notice that the reverso in this case will essentially stop the auto block from working because it's going to be hitting into it and not allowing it to really extend itself out in front of me and lock up in the case that we should need it. So we're going to need to try and extend our abseil device away from us in some way, and the easiest way to do that is with a 60 centimeter sling. Now, if for whatever reason you don't usually carry slings with you, you usually use accessory cord or something like that, then don't worry, because you probably have some Alpine quick draws that use 60 centimeter slings as well. And if you've got a 120 centimeter sling, that will also do the trick. You can just double it up and it will become a 60 centimeter sling. So we're going to thread it through our belay loop here, and this is called a basket hitch. Okay, so we just pull the two ends together, and then I'm going to place the carabiner from my abseil device through those two ends. Okay, and now all I have to do is set up my abseil, passing the 2 bites of rope through the abseil device, close that carabiner, and we're ready to go. So I'm going to pull in all the slack on my device there, same for my auto block. Okay, and now I'm going to sort out my ropes. Okay, I've got to throw them down. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a stopper knot in the ends of my ropes. Okay, this is just a double overhand knot, nice and simple, kind of the same thing we did to connect the two ropes there. I'll do that with both of my ropes. Okay, and then I'll pull through some slack. You'll notice that I'm actually using the bottom parts of the rope here, which is what I suggested you don't do before. So those little details can make a big difference. We'll pull through quite a bit of rope until we've got enough weight in our hands so that when we throw it off the edge, it will pull the rest of the rope down with its own weight. Okay, at that point, we'll obviously shout out rope to make sure that no one's going to get hit below us, or if they are going to get hit, that they have a moment to cover their heads, and we'll then throw the rope down. Okay, we'll do that with both strands of the rope, both sides of the rope, and often it will get caught on bushes and things on its way down, and it won't completely kind of stretch out, but that's not a problem. As we abseil down, we can go and pull it out of the bushes and sort it out. One very important thing is that if that does happen, then we never want to abseil beyond a point where it's been caught on something, because if we can't release it from below, then we're going to have to climb back up to retrieve it. So just something to bear in mind. Okay, at this point, I've got both my ropes with stopper knots in the end of them. I've thrown them down off the cliff, and I want to do a real good function test to make sure that I've got everything set up properly. So I'm going to lengthen my my Petzl Connect here, which is why I really do recommend having adjustable lanyards. It does make these kinds of things a lot easier. And I can weight my belay, check that everything's working. I'm going to check my carabiners are closed. That one was open a little bit, so good check there. And at this point, I can take my lanyard off now that I've checked everything. What I like to do is I usually clip the carabiner from my personal lanyard to the side of the rope that I need to pull on in order to retrieve the rope at the next abseil station. Okay, I have really bad memory, and it just helps me to know which one to pull on. At this point, if I'm the last person to abseil, then I can clean my anchor. Okay, I can retrieve everything here, and notice, even though I'm weighting the ropes, it's not an issue for me to do that because I've set up my abseil behind the anchor, right? If I need to free up a hand at this point and I want to weight my auto block, I don't want to put my kind of full trust on the auto block on its own, so I can just tie a simple overhand knot or a figure 8 or something like that, and with another carabiner I can clip that to my belay loop, and then I can use my hands to do whatever I need to do. Okay, so I'm going to clean my anchor. Get all of your gear as organized as possible. I'd recommend you get into the habit of not leaving things just dangling off of your harness. Okay, with these slings we can always just pass it over our shoulder, which is nice and easy. Okay, and now I'm ready to go, so I'm going to keep my hand on the brake strands, undo the carabiner for my backup or catastrophe knot, put my carabiner away, and I'm ready to begin abseiling. Notice that as I'm abseiling, all I'm essentially trying to do is to stop the auto block from activating. So I'm not letting it activate and then releasing it all the time. You'll see people doing these kinds of obscene gestures with their hand. All I'm trying to do is stop it from activating, and then I'm actually creating friction with my brake hand, which is my right hand in this case, and that's what's controlling the abseil. The auto block is just there in the case of emergency. Should I let go with my hand for whatever reason, it can activate and stop me from continuing to slide down the ropes. So there you have a basic system to make sure you're always as safe as possible when abseiling, and we've sprinkled in a few little tips there to make it a bit more efficient as well. If you like this video or you enjoy these kinds of climbing tips, then make sure to subscribe, hit the notifications button, all that stuff, and leave me a comment to let me know what you think of this video, and if you've got any more questions about abseiling, I'll be happy to answer them in the comment section below. Thank you as always, and I'll catch you in the next one.